I'm here with the mastermind behind these beautiful leather pieces. This is Swift from Swift Hammer.
Howdy.
It's been a pleasure working with you. So these are some of our pieces from the Signature Collection, but what we'd like to talk to you about today is the exclusive Heritage Collection with the beautiful Shell Cordovan. Can you tell us a little more about Shell Cordovan and the processes? Wow, it's so beautiful. So beautiful.
Shell Cordovan is the leather that comes from horses' butt cheeks. It is regarded as some real, even as leather workers, some particularly nice stuff.
Yeah.
It's not just the material and where it comes from, it's the processing. So like the way that they get this really beautiful shine is getting a very glossy, heavy stone that just basically rubs over this and gives it a polish. As a leather worker, this is like the finest stuff to work with. And we normally hold on to this for very special, very exclusive projects.
Because this here, basically, this is one horse, right? Both sides of
Both
one
sides.
horse?
This is one horse. One horse's worth of Shell Cordovan. They make still leather out of everything else, but the leather that's right around the butt cheek is very dense.
So the look of it, the feel of it is immediately noticeably different and in a more luxurious way. But how does the producing part of it, how's the process different?
Well, this isn't exactly leather that I'd want to just make something simple out of.
Understood.
We could just run the same exact process, but material like this is reserved for the nice stuff. I typically only roll this out unless either someone has a budget that can defend it, or I'm just looking to really make some flashy stuff.
Yeah.
So there are techniques that go into making a much nicer version of the same exact journals. So it's not stuff that we can do on the more affordable versions, just because already production it's very work intensive. I don't know if you guys are going to see videos on this process, but it's not easy. Yeah. The stuff that I would be doing with this is the best that I can do, using the best tools and the techniques that I have available. It comes out something looking closer to like a designer bag, a much classier version of the same product.
Yeah, it's actually feels more supple, I even say. And
you need to see it bend.
Yeah.
The stuff that they make out of shoes, when it has that toe part and it rolls over.
Yeah.
When this stuff gets creased, it's hard to describe, but it has its own pillowing effect. You see the blue, like brighten.
Yeah,
where it
what you
bends.
mean, yeah.
This stuff is like it's hard to describe, but it's like leather, clay, and memory foam at the same time.
Well, you're describing it beautifully.
Gloss.
I can tell that you really love this stuff and working with it. That's why I call this collection Heritage, because it's intended to be such a product that father passes on to son, etc.
Absolutely.
It's one of those things that just lasts and is timelessly beautiful. And especially in this color, I don't know what you would even call this. It's like Neptune, greenish blue, but it's absolutely stunning.
It is my personal favorite color.
Yeah.
This type of blue for me is like
just
a royal blue.
Royal blue, basically. It's very regal. That it is. Okay, well, there you have it. Just a little snippet of why you might want to consider the Heritage in the Shell Cordovan. Besides it being very beautiful and softer to the touch, it's just a very special piece. How long do you reckon one of these would take you in Shell Cordovan with all the procedures that you take?
Probably like 2 full days of work.
Wow.
It's just from the hand stitching alone.
Everything's hand stitched.
Everything is hand stitched.
Wow. So, why is that?
When I do machine stitching, don't get me wrong, machine stitching is useful, it's powerful. There's almost everything that we see made around us is all machine stitched. When I do hand stitching, there's no way a single stitch gets past my eye. Meaning when I place down my tools to lay down the holes, because I have to do those individually, there's not a single spot where the needle falls where I know it didn't fall. So every single corner, every single time when you have like another layer piece of material stacking up on top of each other, that needle hits exactly where it needs to. So there's no accidental weakening of the material. Every single stitch was deliberate, which means I can be a control freak and everything can be exactly where it needs to. But the stitching material that we use for machine stitching, don't get me wrong, it's pretty strong, but it's not indestructible, and it's typical of other industry standards. The stuff you use for hand stitching, that shit is basically indestructible. Excuse my language. It's probably going to be a fancier deal. You can bleep that out, and that's who you're paying for. You're paying for an artist, guys.
Yeah.
But the stuff that we do with hand stitching is damn near indestructible. Like if you look at this here, this is the same material, just a different color. I wouldn't be using white on this one.
This is the color that would. Oh, it's like waxed.
Yeah. So this is waxed braided hand stitching cord.
Wow.
This stuff is from Germany. I've actually looked at this under a microscope, compared it. I had other people send me materials that I can check out, and I compared their threads under a microscope. This shit has like twice the braiding, so it's twice as fine as small.
And you think you can hang on this thing?
Oh,
like,
I can definitely. A single thread of that can definitely. hold my body.
whoa, that's incredible. That's amazing.
It is very comparable to like a woven rope.
Oh yeah, I see it. Yeah.
Now I've actually studied this stuff under a microscope just to compare it. It was a sponsorship brand, so I can compare the two of them and see which one's good.
Interesting. Yeah.
This stuff is pretty impressive under a microscope. But,
You get deep. You get
oh yeah,
deep.
oh absolutely. This is I've sacrificed my life and
Yeah.
soul and
Yeah,
my social interactions with other people so that I could just do this all the freaking time. And you learn a lot, and you get really into the nitty gritty of how things can be made better. So not just look prettier, but perform, turn nicer.
Yeah.
Things just fit into each other better. There's no way around it. That stuff just takes time.
How does it age in comparison, for example, with the cowhide?
They're both going to be beautiful, honestly.
With time.
With these two particular materials, this is the reason why I was really pushing this material. Herman Oak, the stuff that the Signature Collection, that is some really nice stuff. I'm very proud that I even got my hands on it. It's not easy to get your hands on. But this stuff here, the look of where parts bend and crease look really classy. Whenever you see like typical incredible like handmade shoes,
Yeah.
this is what they used to make handmade shoes.
If you're going to go through the effort of making handmade anything, you want
Exactly,
the
exactly,
best. Yeah,
exactly. That's why, like, for something that's gonna work, like, don't get me wrong, the material's nice and it's expensive and all that. The labor is way more expensive than the material is.
And
So-
I've seen what even the Signature Collection takes, and it's painstaking. Speaking of, can you run us real quick through the steps that are involved?
Real quick, to
real
get
quick,
through these
'cause-
steps, we have the entire templating process. So before we even get to cutting leather, we spend a lot of time designing on the computer and then cutting pieces out to do a test run. Before we make anything, we have to make the item at least once. But it's designing all these little parts exactly where they fit, making changes. You were here. We had to do this like 3 times before we nailed the exact design, because things fit funky or it sounds great on paper, and then you get to it and you realize this is terrible. We need to move the pen because it's not closing right. So first and foremost, designing. Once we're done with designing, we get all these parts and actually cut them out of the material.
By hand.
Unless there's a need to get industrial, everything is done by hand. So especially the stuff with the Signature Collection, just because
You have more control. Yeah.
I have way more control. It takes longer, but it means I can. We're not stuck to any particular shape. In the Heritage Collection, we might even include small, tiny little embellishments that I might as well do because I'm cutting it out by hand. It does cost me more time.
Yeah. And talk about embellishments. Some of the stuff that you can do
No.
to incorporate 3D designs into leather is absolutely stunning. Wow, you even get to like skull fracture.
That one
line.
is that one is an impressive
so
piece. I think more impressive is that like I did that shit live. If I just were in my shop and spent the time that I want on it,
Yeah.
I can make this so much more. Well, I can emboss it. So like
Yeah.
this would be pushed out. This would probably be like that far raised out.
Oh, I see.
And then I can actually sculpt it. You know, it would be popped out of the leather.
So it's not just it's
Oh, we
you're
can go
sculpting.
crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
so fantastically incredible.
It always comes down to time, man.
Honestly, yeah. Time, energy, skill, talent,
Yeah.
everything, life. So okay, we have the pieces cut out.
So once we get these pieces cut out, there is a part called, especially with the nicer ones, creasing. I have a heating iron over there that all those little decorative lines, those don't come free and easy. I have to put those in. I have to get a hot iron that has a little metal piece. I got to put in every crease.
And correctly too, where it's not too hot. And
Yeah,
it's all-
you can burn it. That stuff becomes easier with time and learning how to do it
Yeah.
fast. But it's just work. I mean, I got to put the lines into every single one of these pieces. Skiving, which on certain parts of these, which is even shown here in the template, I have to thin those parts out so that when they align inside and assembled, it's not super bulky. You'll notice that on a lot of these, things fold and disappear behind each other. That stuff, again, doesn't come free and easy. It requires work to do all that stuff. So once these parts are skived and have their edges treated,
basically shaving off at an angle the corners so that they fit perfectly.
the same way you'd fillet a fish, you can fillet leather, but your knife better be really freaking sharp.
Yeah.
After that, it becomes assembly. So lots of time spent with glue and making sure everything is folded, pressed, creased, and then once they're adhered, you have to go through with the hammer to make sure that the fibers that hold leather together are really, really sticking to each other. If you think that they're stuck and everything looks fine, and then you run it under the sewing machine, but things kind of shift, it'll look pretty on one side, and then the needle will pop out the side on once because it's moving around on you while you're trying to stitch it. So there's small precautions I have to take to make sure that they don't just look adhered. I know for a fact they're not going to be moving on me while I'm stitching them.
And that takes time. You have to give it time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's steps in between. If you do it smart, there's ways for you to eliminate minutes per hour. There's no way around being incredibly precise. So like sometimes I'll assemble things and it looks fine, but when you hold it at the side, you can tell it's slightly shifted by a 1/16 of an inch. Sometimes it literally means to call that shot to unpeel everything, remove all the gunky glue that you just peeled off, and then do it again, because if they're not perfectly lined up, you won't have a straight stitch. That's why, like, being a control freak, doing a hand stitching is something, even though it takes longer, I can guarantee it comes up perfect.
Yeah.
With the sewing machine, there's so much that can go wrong.
Yeah, I've noticed, and it takes time for it to adjust to the depth,
exactly.
the leather, the thread, etc. Yeah, we spend more time just adjusting.
Than using it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So, okay, after that, it's ready for stitching?
After stitching, so stitching it in terms of the signature collection is prepping the sewing machine, which can be anywhere between 5 minutes, quick and easy, or how we've seen, like an hour of messing with it until it gets it to run just right.
Because, basically, what I've understood just right from working with you, it catches it from the bottom, another thread, and then it ties a knot, and that knot needs to disappear in the hole, kind of in the middle, so it's not seen.
You have to have an equal amount of tension up top and an equal amount of tension
it's
on the
fascinating.
bottom.
It's absolutely fascinating.
You learn a lot about stuff when you're in this shop for a day.
And it takes actually safety precautions. You're wearing eye protection because you've had a needle explode in your face.
No more shrapnel in these eyes, because I've already got down that road and it's not fun.
Wow.
But after stitching, which these aren't terrible, hand stitching one of these would take me somewhere between, I'd say, 3 to 6 hours, because it's not just the exterior. There's all the parts inside too that also need hand stitching. Wow. On a machine though, 8 minutes. Yeah, it's not terrible with the sewing machine. That's why there's a big price difference between hand sewing and machine sewing.
Yeah. Speaking of pillowing, what exactly is pillowing?
There's probably a proper word for this effect. I don't know what it's called. You can see here how it almost looks like it steps up and it's thicker in the middle, and you can feel it definitely.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I mean, it makes sense to call it pillowing because it's exactly
it looks like it's pillowed over.
Yeah.
So imagine on the logo part, this for example, this nice, beautiful hourglass effect, but it pillows up to that. And it's a nice creased stitch line around it, so that there's like. In this case, we can make it super easy. It follows the edge and then it clips it a little bit like that, follows around. So it's not just boxy. It's like fucking elegant. Just in the
I
right
could
spaces.
see you want to play with it,
man.
You can
tell, right?
For it, man. Yeah, I'm all for it.
I've been itching. I've been holding onto this stuff.
And I'm
like
telling
2
you,
years.
like, the first time you unrolled this, took it out of your safe and just showed it to me. I'm like, that's where it belongs. It's just beautiful, man. I want it, you know? So, okay, after, let's say the stitching is over, what is is it skiving or is it burnishing? What is
edge beveling.
Beveling.
It's the process of turning the edges into like have this glassy feel. That's not a material that we put on top of it. That's
muscle.
It's elbow grease.
Yeah.
You basically rub the edges long enough until they turn pearly shiny like that.
Yeah.
It means I have to use the tool to trim the very, very corner, and then it's just there's no way around it. It's sanding and then you're rubbing, burnishing over, sanding it, burnishing it until it gets that finish on there.
Oh yeah, and you do what is the edging? I guess it's called edging, where you take off a little piece.
Edge beveling. You use a little fancy tool,
less than a millimeter,
and you trim off. I might be able to get the edge of this paper.
Even the paper, wow, yeah, so precise.
If you stack it up twice, I sure can. Yeah, these ones are for the fine work. I have some other ones for the thicker stuff, but
oh wow, it's just literally
just takes off just the corner.
Microscopic parts of the paper.
Yeah,
and leather. And I think for what we're going to experiment with for the Heritage Collection is instead of buckles, we're going to try to incorporate magnets, and to tie those magnets, there's additional processes involved so that the magnets are not adding bulk to the item. Because with every bulk, as you're using this thing, putting it on a table, etc., it'll amplify the visibility of that bulk. So I think this deserves the best.
Yeah,
I look forward to
there's going to be even a lot of stuff that like you haven't seen yet. So like the handle will be different. Yeah, there's a whole art to making handles, and so this one in particular absolutely deserves I'll design a proper like curved handle the same way that you would see like on luggage. Okay. So it doesn't take any more profile. It's still sleek and nice, but like you'll see the difference, dude. It's I'm excited. Huge difference.
I'm as excited as you are, and you're the one making it, and I'm just going to be here watching and just kind of learning along the way because I was fascinated by the production of these. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time and explaining what this is all about and why somebody would want to invest the hefty dollar that it's going to take to own this piece of beautiful artwork by you. And
becomes
this
a part of
is-
you.
yeah.
It's a part of me when I make it, but I truly believe other people feel that same connection with
Yeah.
stuff that you pull closely into your life and becomes a part of you as you grow.
Yeah, and then something that you actually have the honor of passing down, because also leather is the only thing that lasts down. Generational wealth, you know.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, man. It's been an honor and a privilege.
Not a problem at all, man.
Looking forward to it. All right, order your first one. Let us know what you want with it. And let's make it happen. Cheers.
Get the Shell Cordovan.
Awesome. No, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I love that color.